All right, good morning, everyone. Let us try to accomplish as much as we can today and maybe even come to the end of this wonderful speech that the Lubavitcher Rebbe gave in 1992. And it's talking about the idea of Moses going into Paro and being afraid because Paro was so high. The source of Paro in the spiritual source was so high. In fact, it was the source of all lights, revelations of God. Not hard to believe, but that's what the Zohar says. And God took Moshe in there in order to open up a whole new chapter in the life of Moshe. Namely, he was going to be able to bring an awareness of God to the Jewish people. And the Jewish people would then bring it to the world. How did he bring this awareness of God to the Jewish people? When he went and received the Torah. When he received the Torah, there was not just the Torah was given a book, but everyone saw the author. Everyone saw God. Panim lepanim, it says. They saw it, they felt the creator of the universe. So that's pretty good. I mean, you don't get that every day. And in fact, you in the time of the Holy Temple, you could get a little bit of every day. You went to the Holy Temple and you would feel there's a creator. You'd feel that you're being created. You feel happy. You feel empowered. You feel you're here for a reason in order to improve the world. And all this was brought by means of Moshe. This is also what we're learning, by the way, in the morning in the class of Bati Lagani. We're learning that. And we'll continue, God willing, on Yom Rishon. Also, Yom Rishon, I'll tell you what's going to be the coming week. Oh, 1 second, 1 minute, here we go. Because the coming week I'm going to be going to the Rebbe, but I still will be giving classes in some form or another. What form exactly it's going to be, I don't know. So we'll see how it's going to be, or it will be. All right, well, I'll think about it and I'll decide. I'm flying on Monday early morning, so we have all of Sunday to calmly collect our thoughts and figure out how we're going to keep in touch for this next week. Okay, coming week. So what do we explain up to now? The Moshe prepared not just for the giving of the going. I'm sorry, Moshe by going into Paro with Hashem, and these were essential, high, tremendously revelations of God that had never been given before. He was preparing the Jewish people for the future redemption. In the future redemption, which is supposed to happen any second, so the whole world will be filled with godliness like it was at Mount Sinai in just one place for a short amount of time, but it will be permanent like it was in the Holy of Holies, but it'll be everywhere. And perhaps more important, and that's the whole point of what we're learning here, everyone will be able to accept this. Everyone will be able to accept living a not selfish life. No one in the world will think, no one in the world will think about going to heaven. Everyone in the world will think only about fulfilling the purpose for which he, she, they were created. And to use nature in order to serve the creator of the universe and improve the world. So there won't be any more, just simply speaking, there won't be any more addictions in the world, no more aggression in the world, no more confusion in the world, no more depression, no more diseases, no more blindness, no more sickness, no more. Eventually, there won't be even any death. And then even the dead will raise. They'll come back to this. That's who knows what that means, right? All the dead bodies will come back up with their souls in it. Okay, that's God's business. It's not our business. Okay, this is what we got up to. Then the Rebbe started to praise the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, how great the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe was, and how the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, he was the Moshiach of our generation, and how the present Rebbe, he's just a continuation of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. He's like the third period in the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe's life. But the goal is that the whole world, okay, is to bring Moshiach, and that the whole world will feel and see and know and be certain that they are made in the image of God, beloved creatures of creations of God. The whole world is a amazing miracle. People stop being blinded by all these weird religions that say that everybody is bad and you're all cursed and you're all going to this and the world is okay. Mibli abet, I'll call, notwithstanding on the fact that Eitzel Bala Hilula, that the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, he had this revelation that Moses got. He had this revelation and he tried to bring it to the world by these teachings of Chassidut everywhere and explaining in all these different languages and even to the most simple, uneducated Jews. He had this revelation of Bola Paro, Hari, behold, Ka'ed, now, Poel, Ba'ofen, Kefi, Shenimsa, Beneshama, Lamaylam Yaguf. Now, the previous Rebbe is how a soul is when it's not in the body. I told this before a lot of times, but there were these students that asked the Rebbe, Lubavitcher Rebbe, if Judaism believes in death or not. These were like American students in the 50s. They wanted to see the Rebbe. They didn't know anything about Judaism, and the Rebbe said that Judaism really doesn't believe in death. All there is life. There's life in the body, there's life outside of the body. So, but now the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, especially with Tzaddikim, he is affecting the world as he is a soul that's not in a body. What did I do over here? What did I do? There you go. Kafi Shia, like his Bala Alula, take it from Miyad, like it's going to be avenged. In any second, it's going to be a Kitsu Virananu Shochni offer that all of the dead will raise up. And so soon the previous Rebbe will raise up and it'll be a soul in a body. Even more, even when the previous Rebbe was alive, Savel Bala Hilulas Yisurim Gashmi, he suffered terribly. Shapolo Gamal that affected him even spiritually. Kolel Zen, including Shabashana Tobacharon, that in his last years, that's all you do, Muslim covered Pel, covered Lashon. He was like Moshe, that he couldn't speak. His mouth and his tongue didn't work. It's a Moshe Rabbeinu, V'zeh Pal ben Ogei ala Ofen Amiras Chasidus. He couldn't say Chasidut and spreading out the Torah and Judaism and Chasidut outward. The previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, when he came to America in 1940, he already came in a wheelchair, and progressively he got more and more paralyzed. Until finally, in the end, he couldn't speak. The only one that could understand them was the Rebbe. And of course, parenthetically, we can say the same thing happened to the Rebbe as well. Right? He suffered a stroke, and about a year and a half later, right, he'd okay. Ad kedei kach, to the degree, shafilu rofo, even his doctor, that was a big professor, professor, shazui mailan nosefes, this is even a higher level of being a doctor. Sha'aloto asked him, hayatachan, how can it be that he asked the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe? He had a doctor that used to treat him. And the doctor said, how can it be that you, that you've helped so many people and your whole purpose of your life is to speak, that your disease, pagu davka b'kocha dibur, that your disease affected your speech. That's what he said to the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. But often, because in such a way, that he can't do the purpose for which he was put into the world the way he wants to. Who, Balei Lula, the Balei Lula means the one who we're celebrating. This is going to be next week. Right, Tuesday night. Is it right? Tuesday night? Yeah, Tuesday night. You were so active in spreading out Torah and spreading out the Chassidut outwards, and that's the whole key to saving the whole world, that everybody recognizes and knows God as is explained in the ideas of Chassidut. God should have given you the ultimate possibility that he could have done it b'mida mariba. The Rebbe was such a good person, and all he wanted to do was talk. That's all he wanted, just to speak and people would hear what he has to say, or to be able to write Hasidut. What happened is that his hand became paralyzed, hands, and his mouth, he couldn't speak. Therefore, it should be that if God helped him, at least, right? Abraham was thrown into a fiery furnace, it says. That Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah, the friends of Daniel, were thrown in fiery furnace. They were so holy, Daniel was thrown into a lion's den. They were so holy that they got out. The Rebbe, the previous Rebbe, was no less holy. Here the Rebbe is saying that he was the Moshiach. It says by Daniel also that he could have been the Moshiach. But at least Daniel got saved totally. Why is it that the previous Rebbe had to suffer so terribly, and especially in his power of speech? By means of his speech, he spread out Torah, and by means of saying the discourses of Chassidut and giving orders, exactly the opposite. Because he was so involved, the previous Rebbe was so involved and so enthusiastic in this service of spreading out Torah and spreading out Judaism and telling people how, giving advice. It should have been not that he became paralyzed. It should have been even more. It says that when Moses was on Mount Sinai, so the Jewish people, they heard the first two of the 10 commandments, and they said, we can't take any more. So Moses, he came down and he said the rest of the 10 commandments himself. But he spoke in such a way that Hashem Yanenu Bakal, it says God pushed his voice so that all the Jewish people, there were 3 million Jewish people, and one person was speaking, that when Moshe spoke, everybody heard it. So it should have been the same thing with the previous Rebbe. It should have been that his voice got even more. How can it possibly be, the doctor asked, that notwithstanding all the good that you've done by means of speaking, you see exactly the opposite. Instead of God increasing your power of speech, that it should be like Moses with Mount Sinai, that everybody heard him, it came exactly the opposite. Shiasur Gufo, that first of all, that the Rebbe suffered terribly, and this affected his speech physically. So this caused also that he couldn't spread out ideas of Hasidut. Right? He didn't want to just talk to say, give me another piece of, a cup of coffee. The Rebbe wanted to convince people to that how close God is, how much God loves everybody, what our job is in the world, and how God is empowering us to do it. Shabapashtus in Yoni Paul, the Paul Davar Shiye Bezemut becomes a royal yot. It caused that there was less Chassidut given out, less ideas, less positive speech from the Rebbe, who was the Holy of Holies, to be given out. His pashtus a dibur, whether he's speaking or whether he's saying Chassidut or whether he's even writing. If he would have said Mamorim, would have added more, more, first of all, people repeating the ideas of Chassidut, and also Bereshimos Katab, and also he could have written more. This would have been good advice to everyone, or at least to another one person that wouldn't have been able to that didn't find his advice or his inspiration in what the Rebbe had already written. If the Rebbe would have written more, that person might have found his inspiration in what more? Even though it's not relevant to ask any questions on what God does in his world. After all, God creates the whole world, and nobody asks any questions about that. How good God is, and how God gives all these billions of people eyes and ears and nose and mouth and power and existence. God creates us, right? And that everybody takes for granted, right? That God creates me. So what's the problem? Right? The question is, something bad happens, and God forbid, I have a toenail, ingrown toenail, something. God doesn't love me anymore. The world is right. What about all the years that I didn't have these problems? I didn't give thanks to God. That I took for granted. When something happens bad, all of a sudden God is present. He only does bad things. says no. If we think about how much good God does, as we realize in comparison to the negative things, or the apparently negative things that happen, the good overpowers it 1,000,000 to 1. Befrat, and especially the leader of the Jewish people, we can't ask any questions. Whatever God does, for sure, without any doubt, is for the best. We can't say how it should have been, how it shouldn't have been. We're going to give advices to God. Even though the fact of the matter is we do pray. And when we pray, we ask for God that he should heal the sick person and he should benefit, he should make it that no one is poor and that the Moshiach. So we're asking God to change things. We're asking God to change things. But that's, first of all, we're doing that because God wants us to. And not only that, we're saying, listen, God, I don't doubt that what you're doing is good. What you're doing is good, but I mean, couldn't you do it in a way that I could understand that it's good? Nevertheless, right? God, what he does is always good. And especially in the past, things that happened in the past, we can't say it should have been different. Whatever God did, it was obviously for the best, even though it's totally not understandable, right? Things like the Holocaust, nobody can explain that. But nevertheless, we have to believe that in no way impairs God's goodness or his reputation. I mean, it sort of messes up his reputation a little bit, but we're just misunderstanding it. God said, "Ani mevakesh lefi kochi, eini mevakesh lefi kochi, el lefi kocho." When I request from the Jews, we just learned that in Pati Lagani, I don't request that they should do what according to what my ability, but I don't say people should go and cut off their legs or jump off of buildings. If I request, they'd have to do it. Where did you get your legs from? Oh, where did you get your being from? What, right? Where your existence? Where does it come from? If I ask you to do it, that's what you have to do, right? But God doesn't ask that. He asks only according to our ability. That we should, instead of cutting off our leg, God forbid, we should cut off our anger. We should cut off our saying negative things. God requests according to our ability that we should try to understand or according to our ability. In other words, if something bad happens, we shouldn't just say, okay, whatever God does is good. We should try as much as we can to understand where is this good? What possible good could there be? Especially in our case, this is not according to intellect of the doctor. The doctor wasn't asking an intellectual question. How can it be that he was not able to do what he wants? According to this, according to the Torah. Moses himself said, Moses was covered lashon. Moses himself had a speech impediment. Vani are also vatayim. Therefore, shalach nabiyat shalach. Therefore, Moshe said, I can't do my job. Send somebody else to talk to Paro. God said, Anochi picha. Don't worry about it. I'll be with your mouth. God didn't suffice with just this answer. Elagam, but also, he said, Aaron, Aaron, he'll be up for you for a mouth. Aaron, by means of Aaron, Moshe, but the Vergashmi Mashmi. But by means of Aaron will come the words of Moses to Paro, really. Even though that it says that, okay, nevertheless, okay, so what did God say? Moses said, listen, God, maybe you're making a mistake over here. You want to send somebody to talk to Paro. So you want to send somebody to juggle in front of Paro, to dance in front of that I can do. But you want someone to speak in front, I can't speak. I got a terrible speech impediment. And you know what you want to heal me, you can heal me. So God said, don't worry, I'm going to be with your mouth. I'll help you when you're over there. God didn't say, okay, I'm going to heal you. Moses only got healed at Mount Sinai when everybody got healed. I'll be with your mouth. Don't worry about it. And not only that, I'm going to send Aaron with you. He'll talk to Paro. It says that, in fact, what happened was that God made a miracle and that Moses was able to speak and that he told Aaron what to say, and that he and Aaron spoke together to Paro. Okay, but nevertheless, the fact is that Moses still remained, it's like for a year before they left. 1 minute. 1 second. It says I haven't got a microphone. 1 minute. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. I have a microphone. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. 1, 2, 3. It's working. Okay. I got a sign that said my microphone is not working. Oh, here we go. But Yesh Lomo, we can say, Shemasha Yetz Lomo covered Kedusha, that which was by the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, that he couldn't speak. Hu al derech Masha, it's like something like what it was by Moshe. What was Moshe? Mekivan she'adayin lo nishalem birur, because that the world is still had to be fixed up, and Paro had to let the Jews out. The same thing is in our generation, because we're still in exile. Therefore, a dibur who b'galas, therefore his speech, like just like God's speech is concealed, the whole world is God's speech, but we don't see that God is speaking. Also, by the previous Rebbe and by Moshe, his speech was impaired. Moshe on his own was above. It says he was too high to speak, and God did not heal him. Rocky, only God made a miracle and said, I will be with you, and your words will be right. But the ultimate was that the power in the previous Rebbe, by other people. We'll see, just like Aaron said what Moshe said, so we have to say also, here we go, Neshamas brios, begufim briim. God wants there to be healthy bodies and healthy souls and healthy bodies. Mashiach will come, everybody will be healed. So obviously being healed is a good thing. And being unable to speak is not a good thing. Why did God do it to Moshe? Why did God do to the previous Rebbe? Therefore, therefore, our generation, we have the power to do what Aaron Achicha, we're like Aaron. By means of that we can actually speak. Like it says, Akol Nishma Beit Paro. Like it says when with Yosef and his brothers. It'll be a loud voice with Shefa Rav, with a lot of, how do you say, in quantity. Shall divrei Torah, the words of Torah, b'horah the balayilula. We have to be like Aaron, say the words of the previous Rebbe. Ad doro zeh, dorenu zeh, that our generation will be the generation that will be immediately shalach no biad tishalach, that Moses asked God by the burning bush, don't send me to Paro. In the end, I'm not going to be the final redeemer. Send Mashiach, Sha'al Yedei Mashiach, by means of the Mashiach Tzikenu, Nifal will be complete. This whole idea of lights and vessels, and souls and healthy bodies, that everyone will be able to speak, and the previous Rebbe will be able to speak also. Maybe we can say that this is also hinted at the first letters of Miyad. The Mashiach will come Miyad, immediately. The first letters Miyad is Mem, Yud, Dalet, initials. Moshe, Yisrael, Baal Shem Tov, and David. David is the King Mashiach. Shlemos Avodah is the complete service of Moshe and the Baal Shem Tov until the leader of our generation, Nasi Darenu, which is Mashiach. Malka Mashiach. David is Malka Mashiach. The Rebbe said a different way, and we'll see. We'll get to that also once. Nifalo Yadei David Malka Mashiach will be David Malka Mashiach. The Rebbe also said that Miyad, the Mashiach will come Miyad. These are the letters of Dovber. That's the fifth Rebbe of Chabad. Yosef Yitzchak, his son, sixth Rebbe of Chabad. And Mashiach, Menachem Shemo. That's what the Rebbe said. Mashiach, his name is Menachem. Obviously, the Rebbe was talking about himself. The Mashiach, Menachem Shemo, the name of the Rebbe was Menachem. Dovber, Yosef Yitzchak, and Menachem, the Mashiach. Yesh Lomar, we can say, okay, so what did we just finish learning? We just finished learning that we have to be like Aaron, and we have to say the words of the Rebbe, and by means of that, it'll actually be, the world will actually be fixed up immediately, Miyad. Moshe, Yisrael Baal Shem Tov, and David HaMelech. Oh, Dovber, the fifth Rebbe of Chabad, Yosef Yitzchak, the sixth Rebbe of Chabad, and Menachem, the Mashiach, which is our Rebbe. Yesh Lomar, we can say, one second. Where's the camera? Hey, one second. The camera went away. 1 minute. Who can see you share what you share? 1 second. 1 minute. Let's see. Can we fix this thing up here? 1 minute here. Here it is. Oh, There I am. There we go. Okay. Oh, we're going to get back to this thing now. Here we go. Back to this. Back. Oh, oh. There we are. Yesh Lomer, we can say. She'in and now. Marumas is also hinted at that Yud Shvat and this day will be on Yom Revi. That's what this year it is. Shabon Natlu Ma'oros. It says on the fourth day when God created the world, it said he put up the two big lights, the sun and the moon. Of a Bobiyom Nitlu Ma'oros. On this day also, Nitlu means it was taken away. Natlu means they were hung in the sky, and Nitlu means they were removed. Nitlu with a tough. B'yom Zeh, on this day was the passing away of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, Nitlo Moros. Yud Shvat. Of a low ba'ofen, not in such a way that Shenishar Nitlu, not in a way that he's hanging up in the upper worlds. Ela but ma mihanitlu naseh, from this became miad nitlu shteim ma'oros agadolim. That the two lights, great lights, they were even greater. You do it that by means of histalkut. The word nitlu also can mean histalkus, removing, and the word histalkus can mean spreading out. We said that. Istalik yichore the Gudish Baruch, we said. We'll see. Nasa aliyah v'gilui nalim yoter. When a tzaddik passes away, so there's a bigger revelation than before. Like istalik yichore the Gudish Baruch, there's like spread out the glory of God in all the world. In other words, when a tzaddik passes away, his soul is not limited to his body. It can have an effect on the world even more than when he was here. As an neshama, then the soul is found in all the worlds even more than when he was alive. Of how, by means of his followers, the talmidav, and his pupils, and those people who are attached to him, souls and bodies here in this physical world, in what's called the ninth generation. The ninth generation from the Baal Shem Tov. Nifalu was brought about, Gam also below in this world, Nitlu Ma'orot, that the lights were spread out, Ispariu, like it was by Moshe. Moshe, it says he went into Paro. Paro means revelation, that the revelation will be in all the worlds. All right, the Rebbe wants to get us over here anticipating the arrival of Moshiach any instant, a different world. Yes, it's true, the Jews have been waiting for 2,000 years and it's very frustrating, but nevertheless, that's the fact. And when it happens, we'll see why it took so long. Mizeh, from this is understood the novelty of our generation, the ninth generation, regarding all the generations which are before, until the generation Shalif Neza, the Dora Shmini, by the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. Our generation is the ninth generation, the generation from the Rebbe, the Melech HaMashiach, he's the leader of our generation. That's not called the ninth generation. The previous generation was the eighth generation by the previous Rebbe, who was also Melech HaMashiach. Mekevin, since to the Geula, since that in fact the redemption did not come yet by actuality, we see there's a tremendous amount of confusion in the world. We have a lot to pray for, and a lot is lacking. Therefore, Haboel Paro, this coming into Paro, the revelation of this, Lo Haya B'Tachlis, it was not complete in a soul and a healthy body. The previous Rebbe was the Mashiach, but we see he was crippled, and then after that, his soul left his body. His soul went out of his body, and also when his soul was in his body, it was in a way a dibur, his speech was in exile. That was previously, which is not the case in our generation, Hador Acharon, the last generation of exile, the first generation of the redemption. Nasa, that will be made Tokaf and Miyad immediately. Nitlo Ma'oris, that the lights will be revealed. Shalozu Bilavad, not only that will not lacking anything in the big lights, Ma'oris Agadolim, namely, what are the big lights? The revelation of the written Torah and the oral Torah, that's the two big lights. Ela Adarab, even more, Notevsav, that will be added a higher revelation of the Torah, and a higher revelation of what a Jew is, and a higher revelation of what humanity is. not in a way of kavod peh, that it'll be hard of speech, namely that was the oral Torah, and kavod peh, which was the written Torah. Liyoto l'mayla mizeh, it'll be even above this. We'll see the holiness of the Torah. We'll see that the world is being created by the Torah. The world is being blessed by the Torah. That our souls depend totally, 100% on the Torah. And the Torah is the blueprint of reality. It's the only indicator of what is good and bad, but often in such a way, the souls in the body, they'll receive from the inside, as Periu Kolanorim, that every single soul will be able to receive from the essence of what God is. By means of this, immediately the Moshiach will come, Shalach bi'ad tishalach, like in the request that Moses requested at the burning bush, God, send whoever you want to, send the Moshiach, and the Moshiach will teach Torah to everyone, and there'll be a new Torah. Everyone will feel the novelty, the freshness, the godliness which is in every word of the Torah. This will bring about a shlemus, the whole elevation of not just our generation, but all the generations which were previous. Just think of how many Jews died for the sake of Judaism, and nobody even knows where they're buried. No one has any idea of their sacrifice. Right? How many Jews were killed in the Holocaust only because they were Jews? Right? There was a speaker, who was it? I think it was Rabbi Manis Friedman. He said that he never read anywhere that there was a Jew that he regretted being a Jew in the Holocaust. Every Jew was, if you can say it, happy that he wasn't a Nazi. Right? It's better to be, God forbid, to be killed and give your life for the truth than to be succeed in being a murderer and living your life for evil. By means of this, I mean, how this is, I have no idea why God does these things, but he does. We'll see. Mashiach will figure the whole thing out. He'll explain it. He'll have a lot of explaining to do, but he'll do it. By means of this, they will raise up and be happy those who are now sleeping in the dirt. And the first one will be the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. At the Chirush Shel Dorenu, the novelty of our generation regarding the previous generations, we can see actually in our generation right now, the Rebbe is talking about us. And our generation, Nosaf al Shalom Be'erich, the Gabi, that without but in addition to the fact that incomparably to the previous generations, Ba'avoda Hafatzas Torah, V'yadus, spreading out Torah and Chassidut, and spreading out Torah and Chassidut in the world, all you have to do is just open up the internet, right? Anybody can open up the internet, and you'll see tens, even hundreds of Chabad Hasidim that know how to speak and they know what they're saying, and that they're giving over the ideas of the Rebbe in an accurate way, in a proper way, and ideas that people like me, who am I? I'm sitting here talking about God, the essence of God. Who was I? How can I talk about these things, right? 100 years ago, it was incomprehensible that a person like me could stand and talk about God and the essence of God and spreading out God, and everybody is holy and the whole world is good, and that every human being is made in the image of God, and talking about this, right? How would first of all, even if I did, how would I say it? There was no way to get it to so many people. And not only that, how would I know it? Who know about these things? Nowadays, a person like me can say ideas from the Rebbe and educate hundreds of people that are better than me, and they can go on and they can give over also to hundreds of people. It says in this our generation, ideas of Chassidut, of the oneness of God, of the goodness of God, of the uniqueness of the Jewish people, the special task of every single human being in the world, the special blessing that comes through the Torah and through the commandments, how do you say, the falseness of any idea that contradicts the Torah, how do you say, the shallowness of the wondrous happiness and joy and meaning that there is in doing what the Creator of the world wants. And it's not thinking about going to heaven and worrying about going to hell, thinking about what God, that nowadays there's so much written in Chassidut whether we're talking about books, tapes, there's no tapes anymore, videos, speeches, in the whole world, until the furthest places, the vessel to receive the great lights, whether the Jewish people doing the 613 commandments, whether the nations of the world, by means of spreading out the idea of the 7 Noahide commandments. Shine up the whole world by means of ner mitzvah Torah, or that the commandments are like a lamp and the Torah is the light. Both in such a way that ispriu kol hanorim, that there is spread out all of these lights of godliness, shekol echad, that anyone can receive this light in his soul, in a healthy body, and as a healthy soul and a healthy body. Until we can see Bapoil, actually, like we've spoken many times, that the nations of the world, and many nations, Messiah the Bnei Israel, they helped the Jewish people in their service. Even more than it was when they left Egypt. We'll see next week that Paro sent the Jews out, helped the Jews to get out. Medina, even in Russia, that it was closed up hermetically. Riba Shanim, so many years, 70 years. But the Bnei Israel, they didn't let Jews go out. And they couldn't even do Torah mitzvahs completely. In Russia, it was very difficult, almost impossible to make a mikveh, to make a minyan. These things were done with great peril. Hari la'acharona, but recently, nishtanu mina katzeh ala katzeh. It changed from one end to the other. What was it? I think in 1990, just a couple of years before the Rebbe said this. All of a sudden came Gorbachev. He said, no more communism. Okay, now, not only that they help the Jewish people to act like they should, and they to go out, even more, they help the Jews. I think I said this before, but I was actually a couple times in Moscow, and there's the huge synagogue, beautiful, modern synagogue, and it's right across the street. It's a small street also, not the main street, really small street separating from the KGB offices, and that there's KGB policemen standing at the door checking people. That's what it was. I was there 5 years ago. So we see it that they're actually helping the Jews. That now we can see actually, in addition to the fact that the Jewish people are all prepared for the future redemption, also the non-Jews, they are also ready, that the Jewish people should all go out from exile and go to the land of Israel, and a gula v'miti shlema, that all the Jews will go to Israel, by means of the Moshiach, neshamas begufim. The non-Jews are also sick of the decadence and the lack of meaning and all these pro-death movements that are going on in the world, educating the children in these insane ways. I mean, things that are just happening nowadays, just in the last 2 years, 3 years, it was unheard of. When I was younger in university, it was pretty decadent there, but nothing like that. It wasn't self-destructive. People wanted to have a good time, right? They wanted to have a good time. They didn't want any limits. But nowadays, the people want to be self-destructive, and they want to convince others to be self-destructive, and they're encouraged to do so by the government. A thing like that. So I think the whole world is sick of it, and they want to see that Jewish people should act like Jewish people, and they should, in the Holy Land, and show that, in fact, the world is holy, in potential at least. As boy miyad, we can see the tachlit, the shlemos, boil paro, the gula miti shlem, and a complete and a total redemption. That there will be revealed all the lights. From this, we can understand that now, what we can learn from this thing about going to Paro. What he said, going to Paro. We spoke many times that all the ends, the projected ends when Moshiach is supposed to come, they've already arrived. We've already finished everything. This is what the Rebbe said 30 years ago. And the redemption, it's had to be here a long time ago. And for whatever reasons that we don't understand at all, it hasn't happened. From this, we understand, that at least now we have to have the redemption to come immediately. Like the world says, Shezeu Zaman, Shezeu Zaman Hasi. This is the Hechzer, the highest time, the most propitious time for the redemption to come. Well, there used to be a Chassid in Kfar Chabad. His name was Reb Zusha Wilamowski. A long story with he had been a partisan and from Poland in the war, and he got shot in the neck and he couldn't move his neck. Anyway, so he became a Chassid of the Rebbe, and he was a very I want to call it a person with no with no how do you say fear? You want to call it fear? He used to go into these anyway. He was a nice person; everybody liked him. A very unusual, very unique person. And he used to say every day. I used to meet him every day, and he used to say, "Heint, here's the tug. Today is the day. Today is the day." Right? Like today is the day. And he would say it every day. Says the Rebbe, that's what we're saying. Now is the highest possible time. But often she'ein l'mayla, in a way that's nothing higher than it. In other words, sha'gavul, this whole idea of time itself will become unlimited, the highest. Highest means there's nothing higher than it. Ad la'ofen she'ein mitachtim mamash, until it becomes united with the infinite, becomes united with the finite. How can you have an infinite time? Doesn't make any sense. That's what Moshe went into Paro, that he said that the highest lights will be revealed in the physical world. Adarab, exactly the opposite, even more. To the contrary, the main emphasis here is not the infinity, but on the lower part, time. Not that God will be revealed in the world. The emphasis is on God. The emphasis here is on the world, that God will be revealed here in time. Ki baruchnius, in spiritual, even what we call the highest of spiritual, there is the completion of the redemption. That's what we want. Einehem haruchnius inyanim, einehem haruchnim, the eyes, the spiritual eyes of the Jewish people will see already the redemption right now, even though that it's not happening outside physically, but spiritually, at least we can see that. Now, all we have to do is just open up our eyes, our physical eyes, and that also they will see the future redemption, kafishi as it is, begilui, be'enei basar, b'zman. Now, in these we can move on, and like it's understood simply. Ikara bakasha, the main request, and the gaguim, and the longing for the future redemption are not so more spiritual and from the soul. Timitzad ruchnius, the spiritual things, everything is already completed. Hagam, even though that a Jew has found a soul in a body, true, and we can't deny that, and we're in the world, we can't deny that either. But at least we know one thing: the spiritual soul will not feel the darkness of the world. Masha'inkin, which is not the case, the physical world, in Yanim Shel Guf, Sham, Ikar, Nirgash, all we can feel is the concealment, so it brings a tremendous longing for the redemption even more. Let me tell you a story that I just heard, but I'll finish this about the Baba Sali. Achirish, the main novelty of the future redemption will be that will be revealed, all of the lights of God will be in the physical world, and we'll be able to see it physically. B'makom, in time and in place, physical. The whole world will be like a holy temple. Shia said, Diro lo b'tachtonim, that God will be here in the physical world. And like we said so many times before, what this means is it's already in us. We're already alive. If a person is alive, it means that he has godliness inside of him. And in fact, more, godliness is the main part of us. That's our life. But we forget about that, right? We forget about that. A person has a nice house. He's got a family. He has a whatever it is. And he loses his keys. This just happened to me. I lost my keys. By the way, any of my listeners that hear know where my keys are, I would really appreciate it. I lost my car keys. So I lost my car. I had a big thing on it, hanging on it. It was a big thing. Can't figure out where it is. I'm really occupied. I put up signs. I ask people. I go to the stores. I went again and again. Where am I? I have a car. I can't drive my car. I haven't got any spare keys. My keys. So what? I'm occupied with these keys. Okay, I'm not considering, shaving off my beard or stopping, denying God because of my keys. Okay. But the fact is, it's really occupying me, and it's really, I say, it's really, a confusing situation. Where are my keys? And maybe I'm overdoing it, maybe not. And every time I try to forget about it, now I put my hand in my pocket to feel my keys. Oh, yeah, I forgot I lost my keys. Okay, but those moments that I'm thinking about my keys, and how much more so people that, God forbid, I know people that lost much more and that are lacking much more. How much more so this is a thing that occupies your mind and you think about it to the point that you become totally connected to that thing. Says the Rebbe, just think one moment about what you have. Think about what a miracle it is that you have, or even more that you had. I had keys. That was a pretty big miracle. I didn't think it was a miracle. You got a car, you got keys. What's the think about the miracle that I had keys. Not only that I had eyes, I could see my keys. I had fingers, I could touch my keys. I had a car, I could put the key into the car. That's a big miracle, right? My car didn't get stolen. There's so many good things that you can think about, and we don't think about them. Where are the good things when we're thinking about the physical, the things we're missing? The good things, they become spiritual. They're like up, they're not in front of our eyes. What's in front of our eyes? They're not good things. Says the Rebbe, listen, let's try to change let's reorient ourselves a little bit. Let's look at the good things. Says the Rebbe, you have any idea what you have? You're alive. You have eyes, you have ears, you have this. Right? Whatever you do have, think about how miraculous it is that you've got it. Don't think about what you don't have. Says the Rebbe, the fact is, when you start thinking about what you do have, I'm going to tell you something. You have infinitely more that you can possibly believe. Things you're not even aware of. You can't give the redemption is already here. Spiritually, it's already here. Everything is here. From this, when we think about the spiritual, and we think any second it has to be revealed in the physical, this also will remind us how whole and complete the spiritual worlds are. Therefore, in the future, it says that the spiritual will be fed from this physical. The physical is really higher than the spiritual. Therefore, the redemption in the physical world, from the physical world, will come even a revelation of God in all of the worlds. Remember, we learned about that? Okay, regarding what to do, what are we supposed to do? Well, we're going to have to leave this until Sunday. Now I want to tell you a story about the Baba Sali Rabbi Yisrael Abu Chatzera. Rabbi Yisrael Abu Chatzera, that the day that he passed away was yesterday. That was his yortzeit yesterday. There was a lady whose son was run over by a truck. This is when he was alive. He passed away, I don't know what, already like 30 years ago, a long time ago. I saw him. I went to him. I went to a couple times. I was at his funeral also. And anyway, so when he was obviously when he was alive, he lived in Israel in the Netivot. So there was a lady whose son was run over by a truck. And they took him to the hospital. Miraculously, he was still alive. But the doctor said that his brain had been seriously damaged and his spinal cord and everything, and that he would never be able to see or talk or move or anything. So the lady happened to be, maybe it was a Moroccan lady, could be. Anyway, so he was a Moroccan. So she sent her brother to the Baba Sali, and he gave him a candle. And he said, tell her to light this candle and to pray. All the time the candle is lit. And when the candle finishes and it goes out, then you'll see a change. So she did. In the hospital, she got permission wherever it was, and she lit a candle. And maybe she was on the waiting room, whatever. She lit a candle, and she prayed. She said psalms and prayed and prayed. The candle lit. The candle lasted for, I don't know, 6 hours, however long it lasted, 6 hours. It burned down lower and lower and lower. The candle went out. It finished. All of a sudden, this boy opened up, sat up. He opened and he yelled, "Mommy, mommy." And he took out the tubes, everything like that. The doctors couldn't believe it. And he became healthy. He was totally healthy. And he says he knows who that boy is. The boy is now, whatever it is, 35 years old, whatever it is. So in other words, the healing is there. The tzaddikim are here. They're with us. Everything is fixed up. Spiritually, it's all ready. It just has to come physically. What are we supposed to do? Wait till Sunday and we'll talk about it. Have a good Shabbos with Moshiach. Now we're going to do the Yom Yom.